Hey gang, Penguin here. Today we're going to be discussing my stroke story part 3, which is basically my second week in rehab and how it affected me and what went on and what we did to in aid my recovery. So stay tuned. Hey gang, welcome back. We are going to be discussing today my second week in rehab. And first, if you like this, please indicate so by clicking the like button. Subscribe to my channel. Click on a few links. Who knows, you may learn something. I'm sure that the links that Google wants on this video will be, at least hopefully they're smart enough to make them stroke related and educational. That's what I hope for. So, my second week. One of the most exciting parts of the second week is I was eligible to start swim therapy. What is swim therapy? Basically, it's called aquatic therapy. And what that means is you go into a pool that is a heated pool. The water temperature is, I want to say it's over 90 degrees because you sweat while you're in this pool. And what they do is they get you walking, because at this point I'm not walking yet. They get you walking and they get your body used to going through the motions. You're getting fully assisted by your therapist, and they're moving this arm around, trying to help it remember what it's like to move in a fluid motion. It helps with muscle memory to relearn what you're doing. So that was a lot of fun. Then at the end of the session, they would turn the jacuzzi part on. So this swimming pool, there was about, I want to say maybe 15 by 15 was the size of it. And it worked wonders. It really did. It really helped. I did it. That was the last thing I did during the day. So, and I'm going to throw in there that while I am in rehab, and the rehab says you're going to get, I think it's 3 hours of therapy, physical and PT combined. It's 2 sessions of 45 minutes of physical therapy, 2 sessions of 45 minutes of occupational therapy. Then you also have a 45-minute session of speech therapy, a 45-minute session of stroke group, and which that was beneficial, and I'll get to that in this video or another one. And so that it's 3 hours of intense therapy, and then basically an hour and a half of you're sitting down type therapy. So at the end of the day, I would do this. Now, the 4 hours of the physical stuff, even though like PT's not, it's physical, they're trying to manipulate my arm, hand, everything like that, and it was taxing as well as the physical therapy was. You have to work your body, but I don't know if I discussed this or I'm going to discuss it, but I'm gonna go ahead and cover it now. I actually worked more and harder than what was expected of me. I would stay on my opens, because open sessions, you don't normally have boom, 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 boom. You might have boom, wait a session or two, boom, boom, wait, it just depends on how your schedule fell. So any open session I had, I was in the gym doing something on a machine, just something. And it got to after the first couple of days, actually, my therapist saw this, and to them was a golden opportunity, because again, I was so young and willing to get better and have the right attitude. So they got to do things that they were trained in that they didn't get to work on with normal everyday stroke victims who were usually much older than I am. So they really tested their skills on me. I might be back in my room after my sessions. Maybe I had a tired day that day, and I really didn't want to do anything, or it's right before lunch. There'd be a knock on my door and a therapist come in. Hey, you want to work? I got a free period. Sure, absolutely. And sometimes I'd be working with the physical therapist in my room, and the occupational therapist would knock on the door and be like, damn, I missed it. You already got him. So that was a good feeling. They really put their energy into me to make me well. And I appreciate that. I really do. So I'm going to go ahead and say that I was at Health South Rehab, and that was in Panama City, Florida. I couldn't have gone to a better place. I don't think I could have got cared for better than that. There were a few bumps along the lines, and we'll talk about that as well too when we talk about the staff. But it was really it was a wonderful experience as it could be. So anyway, one of the things that I don't think it really helped, I'm not sure, maybe it did, maybe it didn't, was a thing they call E-stim, which is basically shock therapy. And what they do is they put diodes here, here, just wherever the area they want to work, and they put them across the joint usually. And what happens is when they send this signal through, it sends an impulse to your appendage, to your hand, to your arm, or whatever. And let's say they were using it on my first, you guys are going to have to excuse me. I'm a little bit under the weather. I'll try to edit these out. I got a dry cough, and I'm sucking on a Halls right now. So, so they do it up. I'm going to explain everything on this hand since I can use it better. So they put it on, and it might be a thing where it raises your hand up like this, or your arm back like this, depending on position you're laying on the table mat thing. So, and it hurt. I mean, it's electricity shooting through your body. I don't know what the joule rate was on it. You know, like when they do the shock paddles in the hospital, 300 is usually where they start. I don't know what it was set at, but I know for mine they had to go an extremely high setting for it to work, and it really hurt. I actually made a joke about my occupational therapist. She was wonderful. Love her to death, though. I mean, she's the sweetest girl. But I called her a masochist because I think she enjoyed inflicting this kind of pain on me. She'd do a lot of things that hurt, but got to do what you got to do when you're trying to get better, and do whatever it takes. And there was another guy there. He actually was not an occupational therapist. He was an assistant, but he knew his stuff. He really ran circles around the other occupational therapists. He went to so many different seminars and training and everything. He just never went back to school to get his license. And they had some equipment there that he was the only one authorized to use because he went to the training for that particular piece of equipment. And every once in a while, maybe once a week, I got to see him. And he just, I think he helped me more than anybody else in those few days because I was on a machine actually doing stuff. They would have a machine and my arm was racked in a thing like this. And I would actually, through my shoulder down to my elbow, I would pick up things and be able to move them. And it was really amazing. That's another thing I want to throw out there too, especially in your arm. If you lose use of your arm, first thing you're going to get back is shoulder movement. Then it's going to be elbow. And then it's going to be wrist. And then it's going to be fingers if everything even partially comes back. That's the normal procedure that it goes. And when I say I had no use of my arm, and a lot of people that had a stroke, if you're one of them, you know what I'm talking about, or know somebody who's had a stroke, you literally have no control over that appendage. Meaning that if you didn't do something, it's a possibility your arm could fall out of socket just because of the weight of it hanging down. So they have to do, they call rock tape, but they actually tape it and hold it up into the socket. So they did that to me my first day or two there, and they would change it, every so often to let it loose a little bit as I was gaining a little bit more control on my shoulder. So even though these machines that Ben had me on I was actually able to move things. When I left rehab, the furthest I got at that point was I was able to move my shoulder a little bit. That was about it, which is actually pretty good being a non-weight bearing appendage that was totally affected. So they were actually happy with that progress when I left. So anyway, back to Ben. He learned. He was actually the one that showed me how to put socks on one-handed. It's actually really easy. Maybe in another video I'll actually explain and show you how after another camera setup. It's extremely easy. The way they show you how to dress, it's I'm not saying all of it's easy, but it's not as hard as you would think it is, but it's harder than you think it is because you never have to do it. Imagine putting a shirt on one-handed, putting your pants on one-handed. It's really tough to do that. So I may have, if I would have had Ben the whole time, even though I loved Julian to death, I think that I may have recovered more upon discharge if I had Ben the entire time. It's a possibility, but you never can tell with a stroke. You really don't know. So during the first week, my first physical therapist actually was a girl. Jason came in by request after the first week. I think it was actually on a Friday. She put me in this machine where I get into this almost like a pantsuit type thing, and it totally suspends me. And it's supposed to have me walking, just my feet are on the ground enough, and the machine is super heavy, but any little movement in it, follow almost like a walker for a baby, if you can picture that in your head, but it's for an adult. That's probably the best explanation actually that I can come up with for that. So I'm in this machine, and she didn't have it adjusted right. Now she was a very petite thing. At the time, remember, I'm a big guy. I was 223 pounds, and she was probably a buck 20. Although they're trained how to handle the weight of people, muscle is muscle, and mass is mass, and the two don't always go together. So I'm in this machine, and I start moving. I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool. But then I start losing my balance, and I'm going to the left, and this machine's very heavy. She can't stop it. So the bottom of it hit the steps. And when I say the steps, they have fake steps that you have to walk up and down as part of rehab. And it started to tip over. Jason saw this as my wife screamed and ran over and grabbed it and stopped me from going over in that machine. If I would have gone over, I would have been seriously injured. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I would have been seriously injured because the weight of the machine would have come down on me, and it very likely could have killed me. And that would have sucked. Survive the stroke, but get killed in rehab. Go figure. So after that, I was very upset, emotionally, physically. I was upset. After you have a stroke, your feelings, the best way to describe it is they're tender. I'm a grown man. The only time I've cried prior to the stroke in the last 30 years, maybe, well, actually, no. Let's say 15 years, because my son was born. That's a whole nother story. I'll discuss that and hydrops fatalis in another video. But I cry more. Little things get me upset, and I still think maybe it's the pseudo-Barber effect thing that you hear about with what's his face, Danny Glover, talking about it. And they think it's a possibility, but it usually doesn't happen to people in my age, even if they had a stroke. But it's still, because I'm still affected by it. Some things I can't control my laughter. Some things I can't control my crying. It's the silliest thing. To give you an example of that, I was watching while a video was editing and processing, which takes a while for these videos. I was watching Space Camp. There were times in the movies when good things happened to these kids that were stranded in space, and my eyes would water up like a girl, but I can't control it. That's who I am now, I guess. So I don't know. I don't feel less of a man. I just feel weird. That's a good word for it. And so Jason came in the room after that to update my board, to put my goals for the next week because it was Friday, and to, just kind of talk about the week and everything. We asked him, because I saw him working with other people. My wife saw him working with other people. He's good. He was good. He was about 6 foot tall, and he weighed about 180, 190 pounds, and he was strong. He was, muscle. What would it take to trade? And of course, jokingly, he said, from a baseball term, well, first you'd have to go on waivers, be a free agent. But seriously enough, he said, well, she's off tomorrow and Sunday, so I'll work with you tomorrow on Saturday. And when she comes back Monday, we'll just say there was a change in the schedule. That way nobody's feeling gets hurt, because I would hate to do that. She's not a bad physical therapist at all. She really helps people. But just one thing happened that scared me, and I didn't feel safe with her anymore. Because in physical therapy, whether you're walking or whatever you're doing, they're supporting a lot of your weight with your gait belt. You got to trust this person that they're going to stop you from falling. Because if you fall, you're going to get hurt. There's no doubt about that. So I switched to Jason, and he really worked well. He really, really worked well with me. I really don't have any complaints with him. And then he actually took over my aquatic therapy. The first 2 sessions I went with a girl, and she was another therapist because that was like her thing. But then she wasn't there one day, and he went in there, and he enjoyed it so much he just kind of took over my training in there. So, or my therapy in there, should I say. But Anyway, I actually covered a part earlier talking about my attitude and how they really wanted to work with me. They just loved my desire to get better. They just were not used to seeing somebody that wanted to do whatever they can to reverse what happened. And again, guys, gals, I'm going to say this again. You will not get better if you don't work at it. Do not expect your body to heal itself over days, weeks, months, years if you don't work at it. You have to do things. Even after you go home, you have to do things if you expect to get better. And again, we'll discuss that a little bit later in another video. So this brings us up to another very important part. When you have a stroke and you go into rehab, you are not the only person there. There may be 100 people in that rehab. And you may be in with, I'd say 10 people, like for group therapy, there's probably about maybe 10 people in there. But that's your group. You will meet with that group every day and discuss different things depending on who has the lecture and everything like that. It's an open format. Sometimes we ate lunch during it. Sometimes we just had snacks or did, whatever. It's kind of a chill out, relaxing, but it's still great therapy because you get to hear other people's stories, other people's plans for recovery, other people's ideas and everything. And it really was a good thing. And you make friends. Well, I was the youngest person there in my group in the facility at the time. You make some friends and you help them along the way, and they try to help you along the way. And sometimes a therapist may show them something or show you something that they never showed them, and you might be able to help them. Say, hey, mine showed me this. Help each other out. You become a family. And in the how do I want to say this? In the stroke groups, the families were actually encouraged and invited to come in and sit in on that, because a lot of education and material there that they needed to know as well. So I met their families. I mean, wonderful people. You became friends. And I'm going to give you an example. One guy that was in there, his wife would come in. Now, she didn't come up any other time during therapy sessions except for group therapy. She'd come in after the time, for visitation, everything like that. But visitation technically was not allowed during the session time. I think it was until 3 o'clock. There was no visitors. But of course, my wife was exempt because they let her stay with me. They saw how much of an asset she was to my recovery, so they never questioned anything about that. And he had a stroke. He actually had a stroke during surgery, so he woke up with a stroke after his surgery. He was there before I got there, so he was discharged before I was discharged. Prior to me leaving, it was my last 2 days, maybe it was my last day there. He was back. I'm like, what are you doing back? His wife had fallen and broken a hip, had surgery, and she was in there for rehab. So it's not just stroke rehab, it's a rehab facility for all physical therapy and occupational therapy. And I just felt so bad. He was so excited to go home. Here he was less than a week later, boom. So he had to take what he learned and try to help her, which was they had a support group, their family and friends, that be able to take care of them, because they couldn't lean on each other, literally. They couldn't lean on each other. So that was awesome. To just become friends with families, with the patients there, it was a really good thing. Now the employees there, again, most of them pleasant. Most of them were wonderful, easy to talk to, helpful, to bend over backwards for you. With the exception of my doctor, who was actually the head of the rehab facility, we did not get along. I don't think he was used to having somebody questioning everything. Well, why is this happening? What is this? How long is this? And that's the type of person I am. I'm inquisitive, but I retain everything that I'm told. So I'm not just asking questions to talk. I hated to talk, and I'll get to that. But we didn't get along very well. We got into a huge argument over a piece of cheese. I asked him if I could have a piece of cheese. We get a cheeseburger for lunch sometimes. Now, I don't know what they're thinking, because that to me is not an appropriate menu item for somebody who just had a stroke, that's diabetic. it just doesn't add up. So I asked him, when I get a burger, can I get a piece of cheese on it? And we just argued about it. He goes, what do you want me to do? I said, give me a freaking piece of cheese. He goes, well, you shouldn't be eating burgers anyway. I didn't create the menu. It's not like a hospital. You say, okay, I want this, 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 this. They send you what that today's entree is. That's it. We fought about a lot of things. It's not that I don't think he didn't understand where I was coming from, because he's seen everything time and time again. I think it was a case where he was unhappy with what he was doing. A lot of people do what they do because they get self-reward out of it, self-gratification. I don't think that was the case with him. I think he felt stuck there or something. I don't know, because if you're the head doctor of that facility that might house maybe 100 patients, there's nowhere to go from there. There's nowhere to go to a huge hospital to where you're the chief of staff. There's nowhere to go. You're pretty much reached where you're going, and I think that was his problem. He had been doing it a long time. His PA, we didn't very much get along as well either, because she was just like him, and she would never answer my questions. She'd come in and say, how we doing, and never listen to my answer. We didn't get along. So, I don't know, there was two nurses that I had issues with. I sound like I'm a problem patient, but in explaining some of these things, you understand why. One nurse I had was my night nurse, overnight nurse. She would come in with medications I had to take around the clock. It might be 3 in the morning. She would walk into the room, unannounced, throw the main lights on. Now I'm in a dead sleep. Of course, that's going to wake me up, because she couldn't see very well and had to have as much light as she could. And after the second or third night, I needed my sleep. Again, stroke, that's when you heal. You need your sleep. You need your rest. I'm working hard every day. I need my rest. And I told her, when she came in and turned the lights on, only to check my temperature or blood pressure or something, I told her, I said, you're going to have to get a flashlight, because I can't be woke up like this every night. It's not fair to me. So I actually went to the charge nurse, who was a wonderful person, explained the situation to her, and she said, oh, that's fair enough. Nobody's ever actually said that before, but you're right. You don't deserve that. It is not fair. So after that, they gave her a little bitty flashlight to use. If she needed to wake me to take something or something like that, I fully understand it. But the other thing with her, when you get blood drawn for your levels and everything, your nurse is the one who draws the blood, which normally isn't a problem. Most nurses can draw blood. Wrong answer. She stuck the needle in my right arm, and I'm laying there. 5 minutes have gone by, and I asked her, I said, are you really taking that much blood? Because, I'm trying to cover my eyes, Oh, hang on. Cover my eyes because the light didn't know. She said, well, I haven't gotten any blood yet. She's still prodding around in there trying to find the vein. Come on, I'm a big guy. You see these veins? You can see it right there. See that? You can see that vein. You could throw darts at it from across the room and hit it, and she couldn't find it. So after that, she went and tore up my left arm. Finally, she got her little bit of blood. Well, the next, I guess maybe it might have been a week later. I'm not sure. A couple nights, my wife gently woke me, said, honey, they need to draw blood. And not thinking, my excuse was, and I felt so bad, and I apologized to her, even though she wasn't in the room. I said, it's not that same bitch as last time, is it? That was the wrong thing to say, because if it was, she didn't deserve that. And I apologized to her. I said, I made a comment, and it was inappropriate, and I apologized for it. But, this nurse came in, wham, bam, she's done, she's out. And it just makes you wonder how one nurse can do it so well and one can't. And there was a huge age difference, probably about 30 years between the two nurses. So I think that was maybe one of the problems. So the other nurse wasn't even my nurse. One day she came into my room, and this is during the second week. It might have been Monday or Tuesday of the second week there. And she just starts talking to me about things. I didn't know who she was. She didn't introduce herself as, I'm one of the 4 nurses, blah, blah, I'm just in here to talk to you. And she starts saying, don't start, getting the attitude and why did this happen to me? Why did God do this to me? And things like that. And I said, who are you and why are you coming in here? I never once questioned what happened. I never once questioned why God hated me. I it was inappropriate for her to come in and start that conversation, and it got me upset again, very emotional after an accident like this, and I went to the charge nurse, and next thing I know, the director of the hospital, not the head doctor guy, the director of the hospital is in my room, and, wanting to know what's going on. Why am I unhappy about somebody? And I told him, and she came in and she apologized and couldn't have been more apologetic. She actually had the wrong room. There was somebody who was feeling self pity, who was feeling that way, and she was in the wrong room. They said, can you go talk? She's a very Christian person. Said, can you go talk to this person, see if you can lift their spirits a little bit. And she came in and apologized. She actually gave my arm a very good massage. I actually appreciated that afterwards, and we were fine after that. But sometimes people don't know that they're doing the wrong thing if they're never told. It's just something to keep in mind. You don't have to be quiet and just accept everything as it is, even though you're in a very vulnerable position. You can still question things, because it's your life, it's your health. You have the right to question everything like that. So the last thing I want to talk about is one of the highlights was during the second week. I think it was Tuesday night when my son came to visit. His grandmother, Mammy, brought him up there, and he spent the night with us. He made a little pallet between the beds on the floor, and and then the next day he went to rehab sessions with me and talked to Jason about how he could help at home. He was 15 at the time. How could he help at home with my recovery once I got home? And that was just such a blessed time. It really was. And I don't use that term at all. But that's when I realized, it's not me wanting to get better for me. It's me wanting to get better for him. Because I couldn't stand the sight of him seeing his dad, who was Superman, rarely got sick, rarely got hurt. Now I'm almost an invalid, and I couldn't stand to see him like that. So he was my inspiration to get better, as well as my wife. I mean, but he, it's your kid. You know what I'm talking about on that. If you have children, so that was so much fun. Just him being there, it was just a great thing. One time, I think it was the second time that he spent a night. He was pushing me outside. It was a great day outside. It was, it's Florida. It was March, but it was still a beautiful day. So he's going to push me outside into the little courtyard and get some, fresh air. Well, he goes to push me, and he's going fast, and we're going over these uneven bricks off road. And I'm sitting there, and when you have a stroke, you have like a lap tray that goes on the wheelchair, has a cup holder. We have a drink in there, which they encourage drinking water, blah, blah, all the time. So, I had ice water sitting there, and we're just bouncing over this thing. The cup of water flies up out of there, flies all over me, over him. It was the funniest thing. If you ever seen a 15-year-old laugh until they just about peed their pants, that was a time for it to happen. And I sit back and I smile now, and every time I tell that story, it just warms my heart, because it was such a fun thing between us. And we joked about my situation. He started calling me stroke brain. My family's the type of family that if you don't laugh about something, you're going to cry about it. And there's no sense in doing that. It doesn't help anybody. So we would say things to laugh, floppy arm, floppy leg, bad leg, good leg, whatever. But, stroke brain, I still use it myself. And it's a very common term among stroke patients. Even though your therapists don't want you saying good arm, bad arm, they like to say strong arm, weak arm, things like that, because they don't want it as such a negative thing. And I understand that. They want everything to be as positive as it can. So I'm glad that I was able to share this with you today. Again, don't hesitate to ask me any questions. Make sure you click like, subscribe in the bottom. That'll help me out a lot. And if you're here because you've had a stroke or know somebody has a stroke and you're just trying to get a better understanding, my videos usually are about 15 minutes or so long. Please take the time and listen to what I'm saying, because I've been there. I know it's not going to make it easier going through it, but at least you'll go through it maybe with a little bit better knowledge of what's going on. So for today, the Penguin has spoken. Well, guys, I'm sorry. This video was actually 30 minutes long. I never intended for that to be that long. I just noticed it when I stopped recording right there. If you watched the whole thing, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me, and I hope it meant a lot to you. I can't promise the other videos will be longer or shorter. I don't know. Once I get talking, and you notice how I get off on tangents. So, again, thanks. Penguin has spoken.